I felt the shift before I even saw the manifest. Sitting in my corner office at Apex Innovations in Seattle, the kind of place where the rain pattered endlessly against the windows overlooking the loading docks, I heard Derek Vaughn's voice crackle over the warehouse PA system. He sounded confident, almost triumphant, like he was sealing a $1 million deal. Priority push on those encryption modules, ZR series prototypes. Get them crated and out to the freight forwarder by end of day. International client waiting. My stomach twisted. ZR series weren't ready for export. Those units contained advanced network encryption tech that could double as surveillance tools. Squarely under ECCN 5A002 of the Commerce Control List, dual-use items requiring strict licensing and end-user verification. I'd flagged them weeks ago in our compliance matrix. No one had my sign-off. No BIS acknowledgement. Nothing. I left my lukewarm coffee behind and hurried down the metal stairs to the dock, heels clicking against the concrete. The air smelled of diesel and rain-soaked cardboard. There was Derek, in his tailored blazer, gesturing animatedly to two junior logistics techs and a forklift driver. One crate sat half-loaded onto a truck bound for a third-party consolidator heading overseas. "Derek," I said, stepping into the group, voice steady but edged with warning. "Those ZR units aren't cleared. They're not even on the manifest I approved." He turned with that practice smile, the one that usually charmed investors but always felt slippery to me. "Sarah, relax. I had Marcus reclassify under a general category. It's handled." I looked at Marcus, a young tech barely out of college, who suddenly found his clipboard fascinating. "What code exactly?" I pressed. "ER99, he mumbled, glancing nervously at Derek. "R99. That vague catch-all didn't cover thermal imaging components or encryption modules under Category 5. Part 2. It was a red flag for any auditor. "You know that won't hold under BIS review," I said quietly, locking eyes with Derek. This could trigger a presumption of denial, especially if the end user is in a restricted jurisdiction. Derek waved it off like I was overreacting to a minor delay. "Exports move fast these days. You're turning this into bureaucracy when we need velocity to hit Q3 targets." That moment crystallized everything. I knew then that Derek's push for agility wasn't innovation. It was a gamble with federal law, our licenses, and potentially prison time. The GR wasn't optional. It protected national security. But in the pressure cooker of venture-funded tech, shortcuts looked tempting. That evening, I stayed late, pulling 6 weeks of outbound logs. Rain hammered the roof as I cross-referenced ECCNs, HTS codes, and end-user certificates against our internal database. 3 more suspicious reclassifications surfaced: sloppy overrides routing sensitive firmware through shell entities in free trade zones. 1 distributor address traced to a mailbox operation in Dubai that screamed evasion. I compiled everything into a clean report, violations listed without emotion. Just facts and citations from Part 748 and 758. The next morning, I walked it to our in-house counsel, Lisa Chun. She read it in silence, color draining from her face. "We'll escalate quietly to the director," she said. "This stays contained." Wishful thinking. When we confronted Derek in the glass-walled conference room, he laughed outright. "Sarah's being overly cautious again. We're scaling aggressively. Safe play on every form. And we'll never close deals." "I care about not ending up in federal court," I replied, keeping my tone even. "Or on the denied persons list." He dismissed it like a dietary warning. The following week, I found a printed strategy deck left in the copier room. Under Barriers to Efficiency, Legacy Compliance, Reassign and Automate. Legacy. That was code for me. I worked methodically after hours, I hardened our classification matrix with dual authentication, depositing a certified copy with legal and compliance lead Kendra. I drafted a detailed memo on ECCN dependencies, highlighting personnel-bound restrictions, filed it digitally with timestamps, and ensured system logs pointed only to authorized officers, me. Shipments continued on schedule, but every sensitive export now required my explicit validation. No one could bypass without triggering flags. The call from HR came Monday morning. Sarah, your risk posture isn't aligning with our growth strategy. We're realigning responsibilities. They avoided fired, framing it as a graceful exit. I didn't fight. I gathered my badge, walked to the exit interview, and faced Derek loitering nearby like a spectator at a crash. Remember, I said softly before leaving, Export Authority doesn't transfer without BIS Form 748P approval. Until then, only the named officer of record can authorize.
He smirked.
We'll manage, but federal systems don't care about confidence. They care about paperwork. 3 days after I cleared my desk, the first Slack ping arrived late at night. Derek tagged me on a half-shipped crate en route to a Prague warehouse. Quick ECCN rubber stamp needed. Make it clean. I stared at the message over chamomile tea in my quiet apartment, the city lights reflecting off wet streets outside. I typed back simply, if it's clean, where's the full documentation? No reply came. The next morning, log showed someone had overwritten my ECCN entries with ER99 again. I initiated a manual hold in the export management system. Potential dual-use tech, pending full review. 2 clicks. 1 justification. Derek stormed my former office, now his domain, reeking of expensive cologne. He slammed a thin folder down. We can't scale if you freeze every borderline shipment. I met his gaze calmly. This is Category 5, Part 2. Firmware for network interference mitigation. Certain destinations trigger denial.
It's code, he snapped.
You're babysitting crates instead of enabling growth. My job was preventing federal court, I answered. Access glitches started soon after. Password resets failing. Folders reassigned. I pulled deeper history, 5 more risky reroutes via outdated logistic sites. I filed one final memo. Encrypted keys. Split access with Kendra, and left a sealed envelope in her drawer labeled, in case of sudden revocation. That night, I backed everything up at home, not out of distrust, but because I knew memory fades fast once the door closes. HR summoned me to the neutral conference room. Melissa's voice dripped false sympathy. Feedback indicates you're overly cautious, not aligned with international goals. I'm following binding federal law, I said flatly. Export regs aren't tone or team spirit. The phrase, not a team player, landed like a verdict. I nodded. Understanding the game had ended. That evening, I logged final flags, set a 14-day revalidation timer requiring ECC officer credentials, packed silently, no farewell cupcakes, just my nameplate and certification letter. I handed my badge to security with a polite smile. The exit meeting at 8 a.m. Sharp felt staged. Melissa read prepared lines about resistance to strategic agility. Derek slid documents across, 4 export forms needing my sign-off. 1 stamped urgent in red. Don't be petty.
Sarah.
You're out. Just sign. I didn't touch them. I slid my badge toward him instead. Per Part 748, only the named Export Control Officer of Record authorizes dual-use shipments, until BIS approves transition. That's still me. Signing would violate federal law. Derek's smile faltered. Lisa from legal froze in the hallway, eyes scanning the forms. She knew the weight, E758.2C, no exports without listed officer. I left the folder untouched. Radioactive now. You'll figure it out when customs calls, I said on my way out. The elevator ride down was silent, but for the first time, the weight lifted slightly. I'd done everything by the book. The infrastructure I'd built didn't vanish with my badge. 3 days later, shipments halted at Long Beach. Dual-use flags under Wassenaar arrangement. Customs demanded verification, end-use certs, and officer signature. Systems replied, awaiting ECC officer approval. Derek tried overrides. But the key pair protocol I designed required my last certified biometric-linked credentials. IT manager Louise explained gently, her authority is tethered to federal designation. Can't just reassign. Legal confirmed. Form 748P needed. Vetting process pending. Pallets stacked idle. Clients escalated contract breach notices. Internal tracker flashed red, locked to compliance officer only. Derek cornered engineers for placeholder codes, but dual auth walls held. Kendra opened my envelope. Read the checklist aloud. No action without BIS transition confirmation. She refused to cave. Customs officials arrived unannounced, badges gleaming. Derek danced. Former officer. Transition in progress. The agent raised an eyebrow. Revocation filed with BS? Until acknowledged. Privileges paused. The word further review chilled the room. Code for subpoenas. 6-figure fines. Forklifts parked. Floor silent. Derek ordered emergency workarounds. But CTO questioned, why wasn't this sorted pre-exit? Irony cut deep. Removing the roadblock had severed the circuit holding compliance together. Pressure mounted like a storm building over Puget Sound. Derek switched from charm to demands. He cornered design leads in meetings, placeholder ECCN just to move product. Phil, a veteran engineer, tried briefly until the system blocked. Insufficient authority. The orange-labeled envelope in Kendra's drawer stayed sealed, its handwritten note clear. If reading this, someone skipped steps. Don't. Customs called again, still holding shipments. Need officer of record. Derek stalled. The officer replied calmly, without designated officer. No exports, even revalidations. National holds triggered on all Apex outbound. Partner carriers and brokers received automated alerts I had designed myself to catch emergencies. Ops floor became a ghost town. One team lead attempted repackaging to downgrade classification. Kendra flagged it to legal immediately. All hands email from Derek spun legacy protocol issues. Engineers saw through it. The blockade was deliberate, built from the authority Derek erased. Founder David Chin finally intervened when Aerolink, a key partner, emailed bluntly about compliance concerns,
hinting at walking away.
In the executive meeting, Kendra read from my checklist, no action without BIS acknowledged transition. David asked directly, filed yet? Derek stammered in progress. Kendra added, Allison, Sarah's credentials remain live on the Federal Register. David rubbed his temples. The silence spoke volumes. No one had followed through because Sarah was the safeguard they dismissed. Derek pushed legal hard. Assign new officer today. Lisa explained slowly. Quoting 758.1, exports require supervision by the officially registered officer acknowledged by BS. Process takes weeks or months vetting. History review. During that time, we export nothing. Derek paced, staring at idle crates like accusations. David asked the key question, why didn't anyone catch this? Lisa answered quietly, she was the catch. That truth landed heaviest, not the fines. But the realization this freeze wasn't glitch. It was the precise consequence of dismissing protocol as rigidity. Sarah hadn't slammed doors. She handed keys to the rulebook itself. Voicemails flooded my phone by Thursday VPs. Compliance heads from across the industry, speaking in measured tones, recognizing my name now tied to the frozen Apex exports. One stood out. Nadira Hale, EVP at rival Solara Defense. Potential opportunity with more strategic latitude. Call me. Solara, the competitor Derek once mocked for overcompliance. They wanted control, not just interview. Federal alerts pulsed through Apex's registration. Officer status revoked. Revalidation pending. Silent blacklist for defense contracts. Two partners issued formal inquiries, legal speak for preparing exits. Chaos inside turned to entropy. Export floor dead. Kendra held protocol but lacked title. BIS moved slowly. From their view, the registered officer had documented everything perfectly. Apex failed transition. Derek spiraled, calling Kendra repeatedly. She held firm. Contingency hires? Legal reminded. Federal vetting required. My name still carried weight on the register. The audit notice arrived as a plain white envelope. BIS site inspection Monday, 9 a.m. 2 business days to prepare. Derek held frantic sessions with legal, compliance, and remaining staff. Engineers packed quietly. David sent a terse query to Lisa. Would she consider transitional advisory? Lisa reached out carefully. I reviewed Solara's offer instead. Full authority to redesign their infrastructure. Budget. No resistance. My reply to Lisa. Under exclusive engagement now. BS agents arrived Monday in crisp suits. One with laptop. One with notepad. In the same conference room once covered in my ECC flowcharts. They began. Review of ECC-sensitive shipments. Confirm current registered officer. Derek opened his mouth.
Closed it.
He looked to Kendra, no response. To Lisa, stare at table. 10 seconds of silence. Agent nodded. Begin with fines. Questions were surgical. For each shipment. Who authorized ECCN? End-use certificate? Officer sign-off. System logs pointed solely to me. No successor named. Material violation. False classification. Potential denial order. Agents closed folders politely. Export privileges suspended pending reauthorization and corrective action. To Derek, consult someone who understands EAR requirements. They left without drama. But the walls crumbled. Solara's press release was understated. Allison, Sarah Mitchell appointed Chief Compliance Strategist. Effective immediately. At Solara. I rebuilt quietly. Protocols rewritten. Audits streamlined. Teams listened. Engineers attended briefings. Asked real questions. A junior analyst suggested digital watermarks on shipments. I smiled. They were learning the right lessons. Back at Apex. Unraveling came through silence. Shipments limbo. Clients defected one by one. Due to regulatory constraints. Pursuing alternatives. David stepped down with vague memo about new direction. Derek's profile vanished from directory. No goodbye. Just absence confirming the collapse. Kendra messaged weeks later. They never recovered. I opened my final Apex memo. The one after Derek's first risky reroute. Under policy. No transfer without explicit officer consent. They'd all seen it but hadn't internalized. Words once dismissed as boilerplate became the lock. The wall. The legacy. I never returned to Apex. Didn't need to. The record held.
Systems stood as designed.
What Derek saw as rigidity protected the company from worse seizures, blacklists, indictments. Instead, his shortcuts triggered the very consequences I warned against. Sitting in my new office at Solara, overlooking the sound on a rare clear day, I reflected on the human cost. Derek lost his role in silence. The company bled contracts, talent, reputation. Engineers faced uncertainty. All because ambition outpaced accountability. Yet the message lingered deeper. In a world chasing velocity, integrity often feels like the brake pedal, unpopular until the crash looms. I enforced rules not for power, but consequence. Federal law exists for reasons beyond paperwork, security, ethics, preventing tech from enabling harm abroad. Friends asked if it was revenge. No, it was record-keeping.
Protocol.
Walking away cleanly, leaving safeguards intact. The silence after my exit spoke louder than any confrontation. Apex's story became cautionary in industry circles. The compliance officer who wouldn't sign, whose quiet systems outlasted ego. New hires at Solara heard versions whispered how one woman's precision froze an empire. I built better here. No shortcuts. Teams understood compliance is an obstacle, its foundation. When a similar encryption module surfaced for review, the junior analyst flagged it proactively. Better safe, she said. I nodded, proud. The rain returned that evening as I drove home. Wipers steady. The questions remained. How many companies flirt with the edge daily? How many legacy voices are silenced before disaster? What does it cost when we prioritize targets over truth? I protected what mattered most, not the job, but the principle. In the end, the paperwork won, because it was never just paperwork. It was the line between ambition and accountability, the lock that held when everything else gave way. And in that, there was quiet justice, not vengeance, but the simple, enduring power of doing it right. The docs sat idle no longer in my memory, but the lesson echoed, ignore the rules at your peril. They remember. They enforce. Even after you're gone.